Hi there, I'm Gary Stearman, coming to you from the Prophecy Watchers studio, and with me is Bob Ulrich. And Bob, before I turn it over to you, I just want to say that Prophecy Watchers launched on September 19th, 2014. And what a ride it has been. Our motto, and it's more than just a motto, it's our faith. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, lean not unto thine own understanding, in all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. That is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And it is more than a motto with us. It's a demonstrable fact in the existence of Prophecy Watchers. And recently, and I'm going to be talking with Bob about something very, very exciting. Recently, we signed this, which is a contract. And Bob, tell him about the contract.
Well, it's been a long time coming. It's been close to a year since our initial conversations about the acquisition of the Trinity Broadcasting studios here in Oklahoma City. That long process has included one survey, another survey, a lightning strike, numerous delays, things that basically Gary and I would look at each other and say, is this ever going to happen? And Gary would look at me, he would say, Bob, I'm just telling you, just trust the Lord. It's all going to be okay. And here on, believe it or not, May 14th, 2019, we signed a contract formally. We've transferred funds, and in the next 30 days, we're hoping to actually occupy the new building, which we're calling the Prophecy Watchers International Communications Center. And it is a miracle, the way the whole thing has worked out, and the timing of it, the Lord has worked out just perfectly.
Bob, 71 years, May 14th, 1948, until May 14th of this year. What an anniversary. We were able to sign that contract on the exact date.
What are the odds?
And Bob says that all the time, and I think, well, the odds are too long to figure. But it reminded me of Isaiah 66, verse 8, about the birth of Israel. And it starts with a question, and this question, it pretty much applies to us. Who hath heard such a thing? Who hath seen such things? Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day, or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion travailed, she brought forth her children. And that verse, speaking of the miraculous rebirth of Israel, we come fast forward 71 years, May 14th. And Bob, on that date, and we looked at each other and we said, what are the odds?
Well, the Lord orchestrated the timing of this whole process. You know, I go all the way back to the history of Israel. You know, 70 A.D., Jerusalem was sacked by the Romans. A lot of people think that the Jews were scattered to the four corners of the earth at that point in time. But you know, the Jews were still in Jerusalem even after the temple was gone. In fact, they used to go over to the Mount of Olives and face the Eastern Gate and actually still worship and still have, still have a look at where their old temple once stood and still worship the Lord from there. Of course, later in 132 AD, there came the Bar Kokhba revolution, where literally the Jews were slaughtered by the Romans in numbers we can't even count. And at that point, the Jews were scattered and removed from their promised land. But what happened after the Jews were removed, to me, is really fascinating. What happens when a country leaves a country and is in theory no longer a country? Different people groups move in. And what happened over that period of time for the next 1900 years, to me, is only a God thing.
Absolutely.
There was a drought.
There was a drought that lasted for how many years? It lasted 19 centuries, basically. And people who would come in and try to establish little cities and farms and so forth discovered that there was only dust. The land had been cursed. That all changed when Israel came back. And it was, this is the era in which we live. The spirit of Israel's return and the events of the latter days beginning to coalesce right before our very eyes. That's the spirit behind Prophecy Watchers.
You know, and I find it really fascinating that there were some people who tried to move in. You know, they came in, they planted gardens, sandstorms came and destroyed them. They planted again. hordes of locusts came in and ate all their food. And finally, they just threw up their hands and said, we've got to get out of this God-forsaken land. So for 1900 years, God protected the land of Israel for the return of the Jews. And so we were talking about this a little while ago, about how God orchestrates things, and sometimes we don't always hear his voice. Sometimes we hear his voice through other people. And I've got to tell this story because I think this is a story that kind of ingrains God's focus on Prophecy Watchers, how he launched this ministry. When we started almost 5 years ago, it was a very turbulent, difficult time. Starting a new ministry is difficult, and you wonder if you've done the right thing. Have I really heard the word from the Lord, that this is the direction he wants to go in my life? And one day, you were in your church, and you were all alone in your sanctuary.
I was. And as a matter of fact, this was in that time period you're talking about, and I was praying there all alone and essentially praying for guidance regarding the founding of this ministry. And at that time, Bob, as you well remember, there were a lot of questions. How are we going to do this, and this? And there were so many unanswered questions that, frankly, and I have to confess this, I had more than a little anxiety. So there I was praying for direction, and my phone rang. And it said unknown on my phone, so I just ignored it, rejected the call, and I continued to pray. And I was praying about the foundation of Prophecy Watchers, among other things. The phone rang again. A few minutes later, it still said unknown, but this time I answered. And on the other end was Tim LaHaye. And he said to me, Gary, the Lord told me to call you and pray for you. And I almost fell over because that's exactly what I needed to hear at that moment. That was the answer to my prayer. The Lord was still watching. Everything was going to be okay. And Bob, in the years since, everything has been okay.
Well, I can remember you recounting that story to me for the first time, and you could barely get through it. It was such an emotional moment.
Right.
And I think what it did is it solidified our understanding that the Lord was paying attention, and he used Tim LaHaye as a vehicle to get the message across to us that I'm still here, and I'm watching, I'm paying attention to all your needs. Israel was born in a single day. Well, it's taken us 5 years to get to where we are today. The acquisition of this new building, I guess you could say it's our trip to the Promised Land. We are looking forward to, looking forward to spreading our wings in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the problems we've had?
Let me just talk about the building, because this building features, at its core, a totally soundproofed studio. Floor, ceiling, all the walls, totally built from the ground up to be soundproofed. And Bob, that's been a problem for us. In fact, here's a little reprise of some of the difficulties we've had.
We are rolling on all 3 cameras. We'll let the truck go by. I'm gonna double check. That almost kind of sounded like a trash truck.
We're going to have a soundproof studio someday. Yeah, when we first moved into this place 3 years ago, it was quiet. And then suddenly, this street became very active because they're doing a lot of building.
We're in lock. That was not the trash truck.
All right.
I wanted to make sure. All right, we are rolling.
And 5, 4, 3, 2.
Kinds of churches we're talking about. They've dropped eschatology.
You can start with they've dropped eschatology.
Yeah, because it's their Israel support they've thrown out too.
Okay, we're clear. Whenever you're ready, man.
Yep. They've dropped eschatology, and they've dropped their support of Israel.
Well, we've talked about dark politics, and we've... Ooh. Yes.
Rewind.
Rewind. Rewinding.
Don't forget your thought. That's my problem. Because in 20 seconds of waiting, I can be on to 20 different topics.
Okay, we're clear.
Well, we've talked about dark politics. The fact that this is increasing exponentially just tells us where we are.
Speaking of things growing exponentially.
We have traffic growing exponentially.
Okay, we're
And the fact that
Yeah.
these things are growing spiritually and exponentially. And you can see, we need to get to a soundproof studio as soon as possible. Having signed this contract, that's number one on our list.
The building solves so many of other problems for us other than the noise-related issues. We are literally bursting at the seams here. We've gone from 4,000 square feet to 13,000 square feet. We'll have a whole new shipping department. This has eliminated our parking problem. We'll have offices for all of our staff instead of literally having people tripping over each other just trying to walk in the hallways. We've even got an additional 5 acres with the property for future expansion. So I'd like to think the Lord is looking ahead. If the rapture doesn't happen, this building is going to be an absolute godsend for us moving forward. And I come back to the same thing. It's a bigger building. It's going to enable us to do a lot of things space-wise. But really what matters is what are we going to do in this building to glorify God and to continue to grow the Prophecy Watchers ministry?
Good question, and let me just add something very quickly. We value your prayers. If you are a Prophecy Watchers follower, don't forget to say a little prayer for us because we need direction, we need guidance, we need a firm foundation of faith. We believe we have a mission, and the mission is very clear to me. That mission is to promote and expand the message of the pre-trib, pre-mill dispensational truth about Bible prophecy, which involves, by the way, a core belief in the absolute veracity of every verse in the Bible. And having said that, Bob, we need the prayers of people and the support of as many people as possible.
And I have to tell you and just say thank you. The support that we've gotten up to this point is just monumental. I mean, completely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
People have come to help us acquire this new headquarters in unimaginable ways, and people still continue to give. Just to give you an idea, the next 3 or 4 months is really going to be critical for the future of our ministry. There's so much that we have to do. One step at a time, I guess, is a good way to look at it. But one of the first things is we're probably within 30 days of actually taking over the building. We'll be recarpeting the whole building. Most of the carpet in there is in dire need of replacement. We'll be installing all new LED lights in the studio. We'll be building new studio sets. We'll be furnishing new offices. We'll be getting acquainted with a whole lot more space than we've ever had to handle.
You know, the word that comes to my mind, Bob, efficiency. Being located in this new facility, we're going to be able to operate much more efficiently than we have up to now.
And you know what word comes to my mind?
What's that?
You're going to need a bigger truck. We carry about 1,800 products in our bookstore, and every one of them is going to be moving over to the new headquarters, to the new shipping department. We're going to be setting up multiple shipping stations there, which is going to be fabulous for everybody. We're going to be able to ship products so much faster than ever. It's no fun moving, but I'm looking forward to it.
And I'm looking forward to it because in our new studios, soundproof studios, let me say again, we're going to be able to have long, extended conversations with the experts. We're going to be able to sit down in comfortable surroundings and allow people to relax and say exactly what's on their heart as we talk to them about the details of Bible prophecy in the light of current events. And believe me, current events are pointing to some very rapid developments. We're getting this building, these new studios, just in time.
Well, we're still keeping some secrets. Let's put it that way.
Yes, we are.
We've hinted at some really big announcements. Signing the contract on May 14th, 2019. I still can't quite fathom that. In fact, when we signed the contract, we were at dinner with some friends, and a couple of them commented that they literally had a chill down their spine when they realized when we were signing that physical contract. But there are some surprises coming up. If you look on your screen, you'll see a copy of the June 2019 issue of the Prophecy Watcher magazine. And if you look real close, there's a little announcement in the bottom right-hand corner about our Fall Prophecy Conference. Most important thing for you to understand with this is on July 4th of this year, we're going to be making an announcement about the location of the conference, the dates of the conference, everything you need to know. Seating is going to be extremely limited. July 4th is the announcement. July 8th begins the actual registration process. So right now, I want you to get a pen and make a note on your calendar to tune in on July 4th for the announcement. Get ready to register on July 8th because I am not exaggerating. This conference very well could sell out in a single day. We've got some different plans, some different announcements, and some very special things planned, and I can just tell you, you're going to want to be there.
And I've got to stop Bob right now because if I don't, he'll give it all away. And he's not supposed to. That's supposed to make you wait a while. Well, Bob, we are blessed. And thanks to you, our viewers, thanks to you, our supporters, we have the confidence to take that extra big step. And we have some wonderful plans. You know, the world's getting darker as we look at developments here and around the world. We look into the Orient, we look at Europe, we look into the Middle East, we look at South and Central America, and we're seeing a rumbling upheaval that gives us a little pause in our thinking. On the other hand, being steeped in Bible prophecy, we understand that this is the way it was supposed to look just before the return of our Lord. And so, Bob, we may not have very much time.
Couldn't agree more. June 9th is Pentecost, and it's always a date I circle on my calendar every year, so you never know. Maybe this will be the year Jesus calls us home.
I haven't ever seen Bob smile this way, and I'm smiling too. And so thank you for everything you've done for us. Most of all, thank you for your prayers. I'm Gary Stearman. Hey, you keep watching. We are.
Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com, where you can sign up for our free email newsletter, or follow us at facebook.com/prophecywatchers. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.